You're watching Telecom TV from the ETSI 5G Network Infrastructure Summit. And I'm joined now by Sue Rudd, who is Director of Service Provider Analysis at Strategy Analytics. Sue, good to see you on Telecom TV again. What would you say is so different about the forthcoming 5G network architecture?
Well, 5G finally brings the mobile and wireless infrastructure up to the speeds that we're all used to handling on the internet. Even though theoretically it'll do a gigabit to the user device, more likely you're going to get tens or hundreds of megabits, but certainly tens of megabits puts it in the class we're used to for the fixed internet. So now it becomes just another access mechanism. But it's truly designed as a broadband network. And so for the first time, we have a chance to really architect an end-to-end broadband speeds in the network. If you remember in the 70s, people forget that the internet was designed in the 70s. We had about 19.2 kilobit per second modems when the internet was designed. So now it's really a good point in time to rethink how broadband works. And of course, 5G is being designed with fixed and mobile access. So we will have Wi-Fi access, and broadband fixed access will actually come into the 5G radio access network. We'll be able to load manage across all of those.
Now, the industry will have a number of challenges as it moves towards 5G. You've already mentioned broadband speeds. So how do we deal with these gigabit bursts of data on the network?
For the first time, we're going to see maybe higher speeds in the access network than we have on the backhaul or the fixed network to carry it back to the internet servers and cloud services and all those good things that Google and Amazon provide. So what we need to do is be able to process a lot of things locally and minimize the load on the fixed network. But we're not used to thinking of the architecture that way. We're used to thinking that the access is the bottleneck, but now we have to think that the backhaul and the fixed network may be the bottleneck.
And what about the challenges of implementing network slicing?
Well, one of the biggest upside revenue opportunities for some of the service providers is really to offer high performance, low latency services to some providers like the connected car guys, with low speed, low cost solutions for the sensor IoT guys, and then good voice quality with low latency, but not a lot of bandwidth for voice. And all of these really have different what are called class of service requirements. And 5G gives us the opportunity to do what we call network slicing, which is to assign them all to a virtual slice of bandwidth, but also to optimize resources, and most importantly, to guarantee that they get exactly what they require, and not necessarily give the low demand services the same quality of service that the high performance ones require, so that we can make sure every application gets exactly what it requires. However, the only way to do this today in a world where we can't guarantee class of service, just as the internet is best efforts, with the network architectures that we use on the internet will not guarantee that we can deliver the right classes of service. So this network slicing today is getting nailed up over physical resources, or tunnels as they're called, to guarantee the class of service. But if we do that, then we lose all the benefits that we got with SDN and FV and the virtualization of the resources. So it becomes very expensive. So we want to do it with a virtualized shared resource pool, but at the same time have the guaranteed quality of service. So we need to rethink how we architect a network that has better than best efforts delivery, that we can guarantee with service level agreements for virtual VPNs. I know virtual private networks, but VPNs are probably the killer app that will anchor a lot of this technology. And today they're going over essentially dedicated bandwidth. We need to be able to virtualize all of that, and we're still working on how to do that.
And we can't talk about challenges without covering security. Do we need a new approach to security with 5G?
Well, today's approach, and it was in the early days, again, we were trusting everybody to be a good guy on the internet, and that was a wonderful philosophy. But the reality is there are a lot of bad guys out there, and there may be a lot of careless people out there as well. A lot of hackers are just having fun, and a lot of users are somewhat careless about how they let their systems be used. So one of the challenges is to really design in, not just to assume everybody's trusted, but to do proactive authentication, so that users are authenticated by their application, their device, their location, the service they want to use, and the level of access they're allowed. So mobile networks have been authenticating people for years, so we we need to think about extending the traditional mobile authentication capabilities, not just for people, devices, but to actually application level access, and make security an inherent part of how you access the network. If you don't design it in from the start, fixing it with firewalls after never really works. There's always a hole in the firewall.
Sue, thank you very much indeed.